So what makes her a danger to herself and to others?
She threatened me, murder me, kill me.
She threatened to murder you?
Yes.
So she's speaking as a spiritual being.
She's not here. She's lost her reality.
So how does she pose a threat to your children?
I don't know what she's going to do with them.
On July 11th, 2019, Charles Vallow was shot dead by Alex Cox after Alex confronted him about abusing his sister. Charles allegedly struck Alex in the head with a baseball bat, so he went to get his gun. Lori Vallow, sister of Alex and former wife to Charles, was present during the fight, but left to check on her 2 adopted children who were waiting in a car outside. She allegedly heard the gunshot from outside the house. What initially looked like an argument turned violent would actually lead investigators to uncover a fanatical religious cult that believed in apocalyptic Armageddon that played a key role in the suspicious deaths of 5 people and the attempted murder of another. This case is still ongoing, with the latest discovery of bodies being found in July of 2020. Many details have been kept hidden from the public, and as of this video's release, no trial has been concluded. This is the first part of a 2-part series investigating Lori Vallow and the murder of her 2 adopted children, JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan, and the suspicious deaths and assassination attempts of many others. The day is July 11th, 2019, and the police have just been called by Lori's brother, Alex, who informed them that he had just shot Charles Vallow to death after he allegedly attacked him with a baseball bat. Police shortly turned up and questioned him only 20 minutes after he killed Charles. He was then taken into custody for further questioning by the police, along with his sister Lori. Their account of what happened completely contradicts each other, and in this video we will be exposing the lies told by Lori. Here is that interrogation footage.
Okay, I know this sounds silly, but it's probably the easiest way to start, is just to tell me what happened.
Okay, so,
I told you, it's a crazy question.
Well, so we moved into this house 3 weeks ago because he offered to get me a house here where all my family is. So we were in Houston. And so he's like, we had decided to separate or whatever, so.
Lori talks here about her so-called separation with Charles. She says that they decided to separate, making it seem like they were mutually making the decision. This was not the case. Charles had submitted for divorce on the 8th of February 2019, claiming that Lori had threatened to murder him, telling him that she was a god preparing for Christ's second coming, which was apparently scheduled to take place in July 2020, and if he got in the way of her important preparations, she would kill him.
He's like, well, I'll pay for a house for you and for JJ and whatever, because he's all about JJ. He's never about Tylee, but he's all about JJ. Because we adopted him together. He's his great nephew. We adopted him as a baby. And so we adopted him as a baby, and so we've been raising him together. And he travels all the time for business, so he's used to just going back and forth. So he's always gone like Monday through Friday. So he came when we first moved in and brought me stuff from Houston, like a U-Haul, and then he hasn't been back. But it's all these threats on my phone all the time, you know, like whatever, all these things. And then he told me...
What kind of threats?
Just... You'd have to read them to see, but he's always mad at me, right? And he doesn't want a divorce, but I don't like him and don't want to deal with him, so that's just how it is. Like,
Lori now changes her story here from both of them mutually wanting a divorce to just her wanting a divorce, and Charles wanting to keep the marriage going. This is categorically not true. As we just showed, Charles was actively being threatened by Lori with his life. So much so that he took out an order of protection against her as he feared for his life. Be warned that Lori is an incredibly manipulative person and a very convincing liar. It is highly likely that most, if not all, of this story she's about to tell was made up to make Charles look bad. It would also explain why the recollection of events given by Lori and the recollection of events given by Alex are so different, but we'll get onto that later. As mentioned before, this case is still in progress, and due to its infancy, we can't confirm nor deny any story told here. but what we can do is catch out the discrepancies in her and Alex's stories.
So we married for 14 years, we've dealt with it for 14 years, of him being horrible to her. Like, he gets in huge fights with her, a lot of things. But anyway, so he said, I'm coming on Wednesday night, all of a sudden. I want to see JJ. And I told him, I said, I will never keep JJ from you. You can come see him whenever you want to, come take him to school, whatever. Like, I'm not going to do that.
So when you initially moved, he had said he was going to buy you a house. So you moved here with your...
Yeah, he was going to rent us a house.
And so you moved...
All my family lives here. So we lived here for a long time.
Okay.
And then he moved us to Houston.
Okay.
And we were there with my son. He was out of school. He didn't have any of his, like, services, his DDD, his anything. He, like, ripped him out of school and said, we're moving.
Okay.
And I didn't go with him at first. And he took him. And I let him take him, and I didn't file anything or whatever. And then he filed something against me and said, I'm only going to get supervised visits because I'm crazy and blah, 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 you know, the story.
Laurie mentioned here about having something filed against her by Charles. This was actually Charles desperately trying to get help for Laurie, and also protect the child JJ, who they jointly adopted. Laurie has religious delusions of being a god, preparing for Christ's second coming, and you will find out later in this case that these delusions only got worse. Charles reportedly filed a petition with Community Bridges Healthcare for a 72-hour hold and evaluation, according to the documents, and even the staff of the healthcare clinic called Gilbert Police to bring Laurie in for treatment. Laurie refused the help because psychologists would apparently discover that she's a, quote, translated being, unquote, and stop her plans to prepare for the return of Christ.
And so I just didn't talk to him for like 30 days and let him take care of him and let him see what I've been doing for the past 7 years, because men need to do that. You know, I have 5 kids, I have grown kids, I have grandkids. Like, okay, you're going to threaten me that you're not going to let me see my child without supervised visitation? Okay, do it for 30 days and see how long it lasts. You're begging me to come pick him up. Yeah. But she did. It's just like, come back and whatever. So I moved in with them to Houston for the family, you know, and Tylee went with me. We drove to Houston from here and left all our family and all his support, all my son's support, like his cousins, everything. And we were there, and I enrolled him in school there. I tried to start all his services, and it takes forever. Yeah. You know, it takes so long to get that done.
There's no easy transfer.
There's no easy transfer.
You start from the beginning.
It's a totally new thing. Yeah. And he didn't do any of it in those 30 days. So he just had gone without services, without even applying. And I'm like, do you even realize? Because he didn't ever do it in the first place. I did it. Long story. I'll keep it short. He hasn't been here in a couple weeks since we moved in. He came. He was very nasty when he was there, but he travels for business. So he went back to the Houston house, and he's like, I'm coming on Wednesday night, and I'm going to come pick up JJ and take him to school Thursday. Pick him up Thursday, take him Friday, whatever. And I said, Casey wanted to come to the house. And I said, you can't come stay at this house because you can't get along with Tylee. She's a minor. She has to live here. Yeah. So, because he gets in huge fights with her. Okay. And she hates him. And so I'm like, you can't stay at the house, so I will book you a hotel, because he stays in hotels all the time because he travels for business, and the business pays for it, right? So I said, I will book you a hotel nearby. What does he do? He works with teachers and their retirement plans, but he goes to them at their school. He mostly works in California, no matter where we live. And we lived in Hawaii, he'd work in California, he'd work in Texas, he has like books of business in different areas. And so he just goes wherever. It kind of just gives him freedom that he doesn't have to stay home every day and take care of special needs child. It's like an excuse, right? So I've done that myself for the last 7 years anyway. And I was a single mom before I married him with my 2 kids. And he had 2 kids. We got married, tried to make a family. You know how it goes. Anyway. So he said he was coming last night. I said, well, you can't stay at this house because you can't get along with Tylee, and I'll get you a hotel and you can come play with JJ. But he goes to school all day. I got him back into his school. His services, I met with the DDD yesterday, and they finally are getting his services back, but we're paying $125 a day to have him back at school because he's so out of his routine. He's been a nightmare on the floor, kicking stuff, hitting stuff, walls, like, he just ripped him out of his life. So, anyway, just how he is, because he only thinks about himself. So. He says, come in to get JJ, and JJ's like, I don't want Dad, because he knows Dad took him away, so he was freaking out, right? So I didn't tell him he was even coming, like, Dad's going to come take you to school or anything. So he didn't bother me last night, which I was surprised. I was expecting kind of an ambush for him to kind of, like, come over or be just mean and say, it's my house, I'm on the lease, I'm going to stay here, kind of thing, because that's kind of his macho attitude. And so he came this morning. I was getting JJ ready.
So
for
he
school.
got in last night, but he wasn't at the house last night.
Yeah, I didn't hear from him, except for he texted me and said, I'll be there at 7:30 to pick up JJ.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, that was good, because I didn't hear from him. And then he came over in the morning, and he's like banging on the door. I'm like, oh great, here we go, you know. And I was just gonna be nice. I'm just gonna be nice as possible. And I had JJ stuff all ready for school. And so.
Do you remember about what time he got there?
He said he'd be there at 7:30, but it was more like 7:40ish
Okay.
or 7:35. I don't know.
Okay.
But I remember thinking, looking at the clock, and he wasn't there at 7:30, and he's usually Mr.
Yeah.
On
Punctual?
time. Yes. So I was like, okay. And then JJ was like, oh, Dad. And then he was like, Mommy, and like ran to me and was like holding me. He's like, you're not taking me to school. And I was like, it's okay, Daddy can just drive you to school. It's not a big deal. You know, just trying to make it whatever.
Calm.
Yeah, calm. And then he was just being real smirky and real like jerky, you know, to me. And I was like ignoring him, whatever. And so he was like, I'm leaving.
Your brother lives there with you?
No,
Okay.
he had stayed with me last night because I was worried he was going to come over and
Okay.
cause trouble with me.
Okay.
And
Laurie admits here quite plainly that Alex was staying over specifically because she knew Charles was coming over. Laurie never claimed that Charles was ever physically abusive or threatening towards her, only that he would often have an attitude towards her. Her claim that Alex was there to avoid trouble doesn't make any sense. Laurie orchestrated Alex to be there at the same time as Charles so that he could murder him. Before Charles's death, he claimed that Laurie had said to him that she would destroy him financially, and according to an email from Enterprise Rent-A-Car to Charles, 2,000 points were transferred out of his rewards count, and documents say that Charles was worried that Laurie planned to use the points to leave Arizona with their children. Charles provided his attorney with a list of transactions from the Vallow's business account, claiming that Laurie had transferred $10,000 into their personal account before moving the money into an unknown account in January of 2019. She then allegedly transferred $25,000 from the business account to the joint account, and then from the joint account into some unknown account. This was Laurie stealing money from Charles and putting it away in another account for herself to use. The amount of money transferred totaled $35,000. Charles repeatedly asked Laurie to return it all, but he claimed she ignored him. And when he tried to stop the transfers, the bank claimed that Laurie was the signatory, and the payment couldn't be stopped. Laurie knew Charles was onto her and wanted the money back, and conveniently she forgot to mention any of this to the investigators, because it's clearly a very big motive to have rid of Charles. The most important point to mention that gives Laurie a clear motive is that Charles had a multi-million-dollar life insurance policy on his life to which Laurie was the direct beneficiary, meaning that if he died, she would get well over $1 million sent into her account. This was a clear motive for Laurie, who had already threatened Charles's life.
just wanted someone else there, like my brother there, because I trust my brother, and it's been a long story. Like, I had to go live at my brother's when he took JJ, and, you know, he's just been difficult, so.
Yeah.
Anyway. So I got JJ's stuff ready, and he was like, well, and he's like this about timing. He's like, I'm leaving in 20 minutes, because it's like 15 minutes to the school, and like you can't get there early, they don't open the gates until at 8:20 or something like that. And I said, well, why don't you just go now? I don't want him in the house. I'm like, why don't you just go now and take him to Burger King, because that's what he likes for breakfast. And he's very particular about food. Like, he wanted chicken fries for breakfast and a Sprite. Like, and I just get what he wants, because if you don't get what he wants, then it's like on the floor screaming, dragging him into school. Like, and he's big and he's heavy, and it's hard for me to handle. But anyway, so I said, just go. And so he said, okay. So I gave him a backpack. He got in the car. This is his MO, right? He always leaves something in the house and comes back. He never leaves the first time. I always expect my husband to come back into the house, right? So I guess he had left his phone on the counter.
So he initially left with the backpack and with JJ?
And so he put them in the car,
Okay.
in the driveway, and then he came back in, right? So I kissed JJ goodbye. He came back in, and his phone was on the counter, and I had his phone. And he was like, give me my phone. And I was like, why don't you show me your text that you've been texting, blah, 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 you know, whatever. Because he's like acting really weird, like he's plotting something against.
Laurie admits to stealing Charles's phone here because he's apparently plotting something. This is purely speculation, and no official diagnosis has been performed, but this sense of paranoia that Laurie feels, and also the completely uncaring demeanor that she gives off during this interview, despite her husband of 18 years being murdered by her brother, certainly matches traits of borderline personality disorder. Pair this with the fact that she sees herself as a living deity, it certainly matches up with many of BPD's traits. Borderline personality disorder is one of a group of conditions called cluster B personality disorders, which involve dramatic and erratic behaviors, such as threatening to murder your husband. People with BPD often struggle with paranoia or suspicious thoughts about others' motives. When under stress, they may even lose touch with reality, which is an experience known as dissociation. They may feel as though they're outside of their own body. 70% of people with BPD have experienced sexual, emotional, and physical abuse as a child. Maternal separation, poor maternal attachment, inappropriate family boundaries, and paternal substance abuse are also associated with BPD. Laurie was found incompetent to stand trial on 3 separate occasions by a judge, and this must have had a very good reason behind it. But again, limited information has been released to the public, so it's difficult to tell what she's been diagnosed with.
Like, I'm like, why are you even here? Like, what did you come here for, you know? He's been talking to my other brother, and my brother came into town at the same time last night, and I haven't talked to my brother in a while, my other brother, and I was like, and so he was texting him on the phone when he first got to my house, and I'm like, why are you texting Adam? Like, do you even talk to him? Like, my other brother. And, you know, he's been telling me all these texts, like, you're going down, blah, 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 blah. He's blaming me for our marriage breaking up, and my niece getting divorced, and my friend getting divorced. He said, I'm a destroyer of families, because I want everybody to get divorced. I'm like, what would my motivation be for people getting divorced? So I could babysit the kids more? Like, why would I have any control over what people do?
Yeah.
So, it's just very odd. But anyway, he goes nuts. He's gone nuts on us a lot of times. Tyler and I have had to leave with JJ over the years probably 5 times and just stay in a hotel for 2 days because he goes nuts. Like, you don't know what's going to set him off, like, whatever. And she's mad at me for always, like, going back. But we had JJ, and he's special needs, and it's really hard. Like, it's even hard to take care of it by yourself.
So when you say he goes nuts, that can mean a lot of different things.
Right.
So, goes nuts like yelling and screaming?
Yeah,
goes
yelling
nuts
and screaming.
Like breaking
like,
things?
Yes.
Goes nuts like physical violence?
He's never really, besides, like, grabbing us and pushing us, but not, like, punching us or something, but with Tylee he has gotten physical before, and with my grown son.
Like physical how?
Like got into a physical fist fight with my son when he was 16.
Okay.
And he came after Tylee 2 times in Hawaii.
Okay.
Laurie messes up here. When asked if Charles was violent, she instantly replies with, quote, he's never really, unquote. But when she realizes that she's making Charles look innocent, she quickly stops and starts changing her story, saying how he would often physically fight with the children who were aged 7 and 13. Surely a mother would remember when her husband of 18 years would literally get into full-blown fistfights with her 7-year-old special needs son and their jointly adopted 13-year-old daughter. It's incredibly suspicious that she would forget to mention this right away, more so to begin her sentence with, quote, he's never really, unquote. The body language she gives off is also indicative of deception, although it would take a lot more than body language analysis alone to be sure that she's lying, as there are many variables to take into account. However, if you look at her face while she's accusing him of being physically abusive, she avoids all eye contact with the interviewer. This is called a distancing behavior, and humans do this as a way to avoid a stressor. Laurie feels threatened by lying and thus avoids eye contact with the interviewer to seem non-confrontational and non-threatening, as eye contact is considered very confrontational. The fact that Laurie instantly changes her tune and exhibits distancing behaviors when talking about what Charles supposedly did is incredibly suspicious, and detectives will be sure to make a note of this.
And went like he was going to hit her, but then I got in between them. Right.
How old was she when that happened?
Probably 13 and 14.
Okay. So this morning he comes back in
He
and...
comes back in, I wouldn't give him his phone, he was screaming at me to give him his phone. He was very worried about whatever was on his text that he did not want me to see, and so I was just holding it there, and he was screaming at me, and I was kind of walking towards around the house with it, so he couldn't get it. He's like reaching for it and stuff like that, and so Tylee came out of her room, upset, and she had a bat. And she told him to leave her mother alone, like, right? So she was really, whatever, and he's screaming at her, don't you hit me with that bat, blah, 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 blah. And then my brother heard all the commotion because he was in there in bed, and so he came out into the main room, and I guess whatever.
What's your brother's name?
Alex.
Alex, okay.
And then he just started, he was screaming, and he was super upset, and whatever, and he's yelling at Tylee, don't you hit me with that bat, and blah, blah, blah. And so Tylee, I guess, I don't know if she swung at him or what, but he, like, grabbed the bat from Tylee and then went to, like, hit Tylee with the bat. It was, and I was right there, they were right there, and my brother grabbed him from behind, like, just to stop him from hitting Tylee.
You go like this, like he grabbed him, like...
Yeah, from behind, like, just kind of to pull him back. And then, they got into the thing, and he's hitting him with the bat, and they're on the ground, like, grappling around or whatever. And then, I mean, it was all
And he
quickly.
And he hit your brother with the bat while they were grappling and stuff?
Yeah, yes.
Laurie admits to stealing Charles's phone here, forcing him to come back into the house to find it. Laurie said earlier that she had asked Alex to stay over at the house to protect her, as she feared Charles would start a confrontation. If Laurie really wanted to avoid a confrontation, why did she deliberately steal his phone and thus cause a confrontation? She even admits here that when he demanded it back, she ran around the house to stop him from getting his phone back. This behavior is incredibly abnormal and childish, especially since Charles was supposed to be taking JJ to school. This further goes to emphasize that Laurie was not in a correct state of mind and likely has some form of undiagnosed mental health disorder. Laurie is forcing Charles to stay in the house by taking his phone and running away with it, which makes us ask the question, why? Charles's phone very likely has a passcode lock on it anyway, meaning that Laurie couldn't read his private messages, so she has no use for it. It is very possible that Laurie was deliberately forcing him to stay and escalating the situation to give reason for Alex to kill Charles. Pay close attention to what is said here, as many details completely contradict Alex's account of the events, which we will look at after this interrogation. Laurie claims that Alex came out of the room after Tylee had threatened Charles with the bat, and also claims to have seen the whole thing. She says that she saw Charles beat Alex with the bat, and also saw them both fighting on the ground.
He was hitting him with the bat, like swinging the bat, you know, back and forth, and they were kind of like on the ground, and I was like freaking out trying to go around, knowing JJ was in the car, right? And so then he got up and he had the bat like this towards me, and I was going around the other side to try to just get out of his range where he couldn't hit me. And then I had told Tylee, because she was on the ground, because after he took the bat from her, she fell back. And so I told her, I was like, go get in the car with JJ. Like, I don't want JJ coming in to the house, or, and I wanted her out of the way. I wanted the kids out of the way of whatever this fight was going to be. And then,
if this story is true, and that's a big if, why didn't Laurie just give him his phone? She says that that's all he wanted, so if he's chasing her with a baseball bat, any normal person would give him the phone to avoid being beaten and potentially killed. This story really doesn't make much sense. And even if it was true, it was provoked entirely by Laurie stealing his phone and refusing to give it back. She then claims that after he hit Alex, he got up off the floor and chased Laurie. This fact greatly contradicts the account given by Alex later on in this video. Another thing to note here, and all we can do is speculate as this case is still in progress, is that she makes Tylee leave the house before Charles was murdered. This is important to note, as it means that there would have been one less witness to what would happen next. If they had planned to kill Charles, having a 16-year-old girl witness the event may compromise any story they fabricate to explain what happened.
Do you remember what your husband or your brother were saying or yelling during all of this? If they were at all?
Just kind of, get off me, ow, or whatever. They were like, don't talk to my niece about
Yeah.
whatever. Like, it was, I don't remember specifics, but they were kind of both, they were kind of in the heat of it. I don't think there was many words that I remember.
So Tylee goes outside.
Yeah, she was outside.
And then what happened?
Then they got up from that, and my brother had stepped back, I guess, and then Charles was coming with me at the back, yelling at me to give him his phone still, because I had it in my hand. It was all really quickly, and then when I went around kind of in the circle, then my brother was there.
When you said when you were going around and he was coming at you with the bat, how was he holding the bat?
Just like that, backwards, almost in one arm.
Like he was swinging it backwards? He would have done
he would have swung it backwards at me, not frontwards.
Okay, yeah.
He was a professional baseball player.
Okay.
So it wasn't a good idea for Tyler to get out of that.
Probably not the...
I mean, he played semi-pro
Yeah.
when he was young.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then I was kind of turned around, and we were all right there in that room, except for the kids had been outside by that time, and I heard the gunshot, and...
Laurie claims to have been in the exact same room as both Charles and Alex when the gunshot went off, but apparently she didn't see it happen. This story makes very little sense and differs completely from what Alex claims happened. The constant discrepancies in their story shows us that something is very, very amiss.
So you heard the shot? Did you actually see the shot, or did you just hear it?
I had gone around to the kitchen to get away from him, and so back around, so I don't know if you went in the house.
I didn't, so I'm a little bit of a disadvantage.
Yeah, so I didn't see the shot. I heard it, and then I came back around and I saw that he was on the ground.
Okay.
And was freaking out.
Yeah.
And so I was just freaking out, and it just went into mama. I'm like, I've got to go to get JJ to school. I've got to get to the kids. I just felt like I got to get to the kids. And so I just went outside and to see if they were in there okay. I didn't want them coming back in the house when all that was going on. And got JJ in the car, and he was trying to come in. And Tylee was looking at me with the crazy eyes, what just happened. And I told her to get in the car and we're going to take JJ to school. And I just left.
When you came back in and you saw him on the ground, where was your brother? Did you see him where he was at?
Yeah, he was right in front of him.
Okay.
It all happened very quickly. I feel like I was there because I was right there, and a second later.
Okay.
I just went around the kitchen to get away from him.
Did your brother say anything to you at all? Do you remember?
No, we were both just in shock.
Okay.
Laurie's body language here is completely abnormal for someone who's recalling the death of her husband of 18 years. She smiles, laughs, and shows absolutely no pacifying behaviors or signs of stress when recalling her then husband being shot to death. Pacifying behaviors are read by body language analysts to determine if someone's feeling stressed at any given moment. These behaviors are caused when our limbic system gets activated and tries to calm us down. These behaviors include scratching of the face, neck and hands, agitated movement of the body, clenched fists, long exhales, and many other non-verbal cues. She does none of this when discussing what would be a very traumatic event. Imagine you believe her story for a moment. Even if Charles got overly aggressive, she was the catalyst for this by stealing the phone and running around the house with it. Even if Charles was in the wrong, a normal person would still feel incredibly upset and distressed that someone who they loved and had been with for 18 years was killed right in front of you by your own brother. Your first thought wouldn't be to flee or take your kids to school. It would be to call an ambulance. You would be freaking out, wanting to know what happened.
Have a seat.
18th Street secure. We got the gentleman out.
You have some ID on you, sir?
Yeah.
What happened today? How did it get to this?
I don't know, he was enraged.
What's going on? What happened?
Oh, he was talking with my sister earlier.
No, what happened today though? Like just in the last 20 minutes.
He came at me with a bat.
Okay.
Hit
Was
me
he
in the back
living
of the
here
head.
or
No.
visiting?
He came to pick up his son.
Okay. Is the son inside?
No. My sister took him to school.
Okay. So it was just you at the house?
Yes.
And he came. How long? What time did he come to pick up the son?
I don't know, 20 minutes ago maybe.
Okay. So you know who he is? Let him in.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think they were talking earlier, then she left, and then he got into it with me.
Like what? What do you mean?
I don't know. He was accusing me of.
Come on over here. That truck's going to be really loud. What was he accusing you of?
He was just yelling at me.
Okay. What was he yelling at you about?
About my sister because I'd broken up the tussle with them earlier. And he told me not to interfere anymore with them or I'd pay. And he came at me with a bat.
Alex's account of events differs completely of that of Laurie, and you'll see the huge difference as this officer questions him. Alex initially claims that it was just him in the house at the time this all happened. He says that Laurie had left the house, and then Charles came at him. He expands upon this later on in the questioning, but you can see right from the beginning that their stories don't match at all. Laurie says that she was there the whole time, from the start of the argument until Charles was lying dead on the ground. So why does Alex say that she left way before that? He also states that he had broken up a tussle with Laurie and Charles, but makes no mention of Charles trying to beat her with a baseball bat, nor does he remember what Charles was accusing him of. This lack of detail of the entire thing is indicative of deception. Liars tend to either refuse to elaborate on points out of fear that they will be caught out and having their lies exposed, or they give too much information to compensate for the lack of truth. Alex does the first option, whereas Laurie does the second.
Okay, so he showed up in the house with a bat in his hand?
No.
Okay, so
There was a scuffle earlier with my sister and my niece. My niece got involved.
about earlier meaning earlier this week, earlier
No,
this morning?
just this morning, before they left.
Before your wife left?
My sister.
Before your sister left?
Yeah.
Okay, who lives here with you?
Nobody. I don't live here. My sister lives here and my niece lives here.
And you're
My nephew.
just visiting?
I was visiting for the night.
Okay, so you're over here visiting your sister and your
Yes.
niece.
Yes.
Okay, and there was a tussle between your sister and her husband.
Yes.
And does the husband live here or no?
No. He
Okay.
lives in Houston.
Okay, is he an ex-husband or just current husband?
They're working on that.
Gotcha. So at some point earlier today, they get into some type of domestic?
Yeah, just this morning, then they left, and then he came at me.
They left meaning who? Both of parties? Or-
Yeah, my sister took my niece and my nephew.
Okay, so they left.
To create some space from him, and then he came at me.
He again makes no mention of Charles trying to beat Laurie or Tylee with a baseball bat, nor does he mention being beaten himself by Charles and taken to the floor. According to Laurie, both herself and Tylee were present when Charles beat Alex with the bat. All he says is that he had a scuffle with Laurie and Tylee. He makes no mention of Charles attacking them with a bat, nor does he say he was attacked by Charles. He specifically says that Charles attacked him after both Laurie and Tylee left, not before. So the whole story given by Laurie about him having a dramatic fight with Alex in front of herself and Tylee is completely fabricated.
Okay, but did he leave also?
No,
He stayed here.
he stayed.
So you guys are kind of talking in between or what? Who are you? Who are you?
I'm a neighbor.
No, just go back. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So it's just you and your brother-in-law,
Yes.
okay? And kind of go through it. Did you
So-
say something like, "Hey, don't touch my sister," or
Yeah. So
where's-
yeah.
okay?
And then he picked up the bat
Where was the bat at?
in the living room.
Alex confirms again that only himself and Charles were present, and also confirms that Charles didn't have the bat at the time, saying that he went to go and pick it up in the living room.
So you both, so you get in an argument. What is it over?
Well, it was over my sister. He was getting physical with her, and so my niece came out with her bat, and then he took the bat away from her.
Wait a minute. I thought you said your niece left.
She did. But this is before.
Okay. So before your sister and your niece left,
Yeah.
at some point your sister and her husband are arguing,
Yes.
verbal argument. And then your niece pulls out a bat?
Well, it wasn't verbal. He was getting close, and she came out to defend my sister with her bat.
Your niece?
Yes.
Okay.
And then she poked at him, and then he took it away.
Okay.
And then I stepped in and told them they needed to separate.
Right.
So then my sister leaves with my niece.
Alex says that Laurie and Charles were getting physical with each other, but later only says that they were getting close. This is when Ty Lee supposedly came out of the room with a bat to defend her mother. After Ty Lee poked Charles with the bat, he took it away from her. And most importantly, Alex makes no mention of him using the bat to attack any of them. Another important thing to note here is that Alex says he stepped in between Charles and Laurie to defuse the situation, asking them to separate. They did so, and this was the point Laurie and Ty Lee left the house to take JJ to school. At this point in Alex's account, Charles never used the bat to attack anyone. Charles never physically assaulted anyone. All he did was get up and close with Laurie in a heated argument. Then, after Alex defused the situation, Laurie and Ty Lee left.
And how long ago did they leave? It's been like an hour, 10 minutes?
20 minutes maybe, I don't know.
Okay, so not terribly long.
No.
Oh, okay.
And then he's coming back at me, and he's still got the bat in his hand. I'm like, what are you doing?
And where are you at? Where are you both
in the
at?
living room.
Okay.
And then I turned around, and he hit me in the back of the head with the bat. So I went to my room and got my gun. I always carry it.
You went to your room, meaning the room you're
I'm
staying in?
Yeah.
Okay, and you brought a gun with you?
Yes.
Do you always
Yes.
bring a gun?
I have a concealed carry always,
Okay.
just to be safe.
Hi, who are you? Okay, just stand over there for just a second, guys.
Laurie, when noticing Alex being questioned, instantly tries to intervene and hear what he's saying, likely making sure that Alex is sticking to a pre-arranged story. The police officer rightly keeps them separate to avoid them colluding together, although it is highly likely that they planned a story in advance that they would tell investigators. Alex makes it clear here, again, that it was only after Laurie and Ty Lee left that he was hit in the back of the head or attacked in any way by Charles. He says he told him, quote, "What are you doing?" unquote, showing that he's surprised by Charles's aggression. If Laurie's story is true, why would Alex be so shocked when Charles started to come at him with the bat?
And then I told him to put the bat down, and he wouldn't, and he came at me again.
The wife just showed up as well. So you told him to put the...
Yes.
So where are you at?
Back
Where are you at now? Or did you stay in your bedroom?
No.
Okay, why didn't you stay just in your bedroom, close the door? Is that something you didn't think about, or?
Didn't even occur to me.
Okay, so walk me through it. So you go back into your room
So I just went back to the living room. I'm like, what is your problem?
with the gun in your hand.
Yes. And I said, I want you to put that bat down, and he wouldn't do it. And he's like, and he came at me with the bat again after he'd already hit me in the head. So I shot him to stop him.
Okay, and then what happened?
That was it.
Allegedly, Charles is attacking Alex with the bat, so how does he have time to run to his bedroom and get his gun? Again, this is another point that doesn't really add up. The police officer also makes a great point. Why didn't Alex just stay inside of his room, away from Charles? Why did he instead go back to Charles and point a gun at him, asking him to calm down? There are so many questions we could ask here, as this whole story lacks logic. If Charles wanted the phone that Laurie claims she stole, why didn't he leave when Laurie left to get it from her? Once she's gone, what is his reason for staying in the house and attacking Alex when he was supposedly the one who was defusing the situation by separating Laurie from Charles? None of this story holds any weight, nor makes any sense.
Just think that for a second. Where's the weapon at now?
It's in the bedroom.
So after you shot him, you put it back in the room, or?
Yeah, I went back to the bedroom to get my phone.
Okay. And what'd you do with your phone?
It's right here.
Okay. And then what'd you do once you put your gun back? Grabbed your phone.
I cleaned my head up.
After you, was he laying there in the living room?
Yeah, he was laying there still, and it just took me a minute to compose myself. I mean, I was just shaking, and then I called.
Gotcha. Okay. Just out of curiosity, how long have you known him? Long?
Yeah, 15 years.
Is that how long they kind of been married, kind of thing? Do you normally have a good relationship with the guy?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. When's the last time you guys saw each other interacted.
Last time I saw him was when he lived out here before he moved. Oh, actually, the last time I saw him was at my house. After my sister split up, he came to my house once.
This sister?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So did you sleep here last night?
Yeah.
So what time did you about wake up this morning?
About 6:30 or so.
Normal day this morning, wake up? Just
on vacation,
you, your
just hanging
sister,
out. Yeah.
niece?
Gonna go do something fun today.
Anybody else in the house besides you three this morning?
My nephew's at school.
And it was just
Yeah.
you, your sister, and the kids?
Yeah.
And then he comes
He showed
over,
up, yeah.
and now it's about 20, 30 minutes ago, roughly?
Roughly.
Gotcha. Okay. So do you, so you only live in Santan Valley, so why is it just easier to just hang out here?
I was just here late last night. Sleep tonight.
Gotcha. Okay. Are you and your sister pretty close?
Yeah, we're planning to go do something today.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Alex mentioned nothing about being asked by Lori to come over to protect her should Charles attack her. This detail is vitally important as Alex claims he was there just to have a fun day with the kids. The story also given by Alex Cox and Charles Vallow are completely different. Lori says that she was in the very room as Alex and Charles when he was shot, but Alex says that she was long gone taking her child to school at that point. This isn't a detail you would forget, especially since the incident occurred only 20 minutes before this very interview. Lori talks extensively about being chased with a baseball bat and seeing Alex being beaten with it, even falling on the floor fighting with Charles. And yet, Alex makes no mention of it, repeating many times that they had left the house before Charles started on him. Alex claims that Lori had left before he was attacked. So how did Lori, who never got the opportunity to speak with Alex after the incident happened, know that Alex was hit on the head with a bat, or that Charles was shot in the chest? Lori knows details that she shouldn't if Alex's story was true, and Alex leaves out really important parts of the story that Lori would bring up eventually. An educated guess would say that Lori was present when Charles was killed, and Alex tries to protect her by saying that she wasn't there when the shot was fired. However, due to an error in communication between Lori and Alex, perhaps they didn't have enough time to discuss the finer details of what happened, their stories differ greatly. You can see from Lori's interview that she actively tries to make Charles look bad. She claims that he had threatened her and makes sure to mention that she asked Alex to come over because she was afraid of what Charles might do, suggesting that he is a typically violent person. She also claims that she was trying to beat her and Tylee with a baseball bat, which was denied by Alex numerous times. She also tries to make him look bad by saying that he still wanted to be with her, despite the fact that Charles was the one who desperately wanted a divorce and was actively seeking help for Lori, who had threatened his life. Alex makes no mention of these vitally important details claimed by Lori, likely because Lori made them up for her interview to try and make Charles look bad with the hopes that the police would rule Charles as the one who started and escalated the confrontation. Alex doesn't try to make Charles look bad, and it is strongly suspected that Lori put Alex up to the task, as she was the one trying to manipulate investigators into thinking Charles was a violent, irrational, and abusive man. The police actually bought this story, and as a result, Alex was released by the police and lived freely up until his death on December 12, 2019, where he collapsed in the bathroom of the home of his new wife, and his death is later attributed by autopsy to natural causes. He allegedly died of a blood clot and high blood pressure, which they ruled as non-suspicious. The events following the murder of Charles would baffle and amaze investigators and would expose the insane religious delusions of Lori Vallow and the shared psychosis that caused her friends and family to believe that they were being possessed by the devil. In July of 2019, mere days after Charles was murdered, Lori, thinking that she had just gotten rid of her husband and would be the benefactor of his huge multi-million-dollar life insurance policy, finds out that days before his murder, he changed the benefactor of his policy to his sister, Kay Woodcock. Lori was to receive none of the money, which was instead going to Charles's family. No more than 3 months after the suspicious death of her husband, Lori marries religious fanatic Chad Daybell in Hawaii on November the 5th, 2019. Even more suspiciously, both Lori's spouse Charles and Chad Daybell's spouse Tammy would die in suspicious circumstances within 2 months of each other. And 16-year-old Tylee and her 7-year-old brother JJ would disappear only 2 months after Charles's death, with their dead bodies being found on June 9th, 2020 on Chad's property. On June 29th, 2021, Lori Vallow was charged by the Arizona grand jury on conspiracy to murder her husband Charles Vallow. The final episode in this series will uncover the dark truth about the missing children and the religious cult that caused their deaths.